and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Welcome to another edition of Football 24/7. He's John McMullen, and I am your humble host, Tone DeShields II. First and foremost, you guys, thank you for locking in on the content today. You guys have been spectacular. As you already know, I'm behind the scenes looking at everything. I'm always locked in on the numbers and the analytics and the clicks and all that kind of jargon. And I got to be honest, you guys have been spectacular. And none of it is possible without you guys, of course, but also none of it is possible without the amazing team at JAKIB. Shout out to John McMullen, who's always, our guy who keeps boots on the ground, making sure we're always locked in on what the Philadelphia Eagles are doing, good and bad. And, there was a lot of bad for some guys, but there was also a lot of good for the team in general. And, John, before we get too deep into the content, I have to ask, how are you feeling today, my man?
Doing well. It's finally here. We're finally at the initial 53, which is exciting. More moves to be made, though. Trust me on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there were, it's so funny about the initial 53-man roster thing, because you made it clear, like during one of your Birds 365 episodes, you said the 53-man roster that we see today, 9 times out of 10, it won't be the 53-man roster you'll see on game day against the Detroit Lions at Ford Field.
I'm going to go 10 times out of 10, 100%. This will not be the group that will be the 53-man roster in Detroit, even if it's just Josh Jobe going on short-term IR. Josiah Scott's a possibility for that as well. Even if there's no other moves, and I think there'll be other moves, but those guys, it's especially Josh, he's pretty much going to go on short-term IR. So yeah, there's going to be changes.
Yeah, I want to go through the 53-man roster with you really quickly. And I want to just get your thoughts on how they decided to construct this. So starting with the quarterbacks, obviously they kept Jalen Hurts and Gardner-Minshew. Were you surprised that they didn't keep 3 quarterbacks?
No. In my 53-man roster prediction, which I lost by 1 to Jimmy Kempski. So
and let me guess, Jaquaski Tart, was that the one that did it for you?
Jaquaski was the one who did it. That was my swing. If I got Jaquaski, I would have won the whole thing.
Oh man!
You got to swing for the fences in these things if you want to win. But I came up 1 short. And yeah, I mean, it was pretty clear after he started. Well, Reed Sinnett kind of fell off the table late. And remember, and I asked Howie Roseman about this, and he didn't give me a great answer, but the rules have changed over the past couple of years to where there's a larger practice squad, 16 men. You can put veterans on the practice squad now up to 6. The injured reserve rules are much more liberal. You used to be, years ago, if you were placed on injured reserve, you were done. You were done for the season. Now you can come back after 4 games and you can bring as many people back as you want. So all these things have made it easier to manipulate things. And that's why I say, I hate when people call it the final 53. That's my pet peeve. It's the initial 53, and it's going to change many, many, many times. And it's going to change, as we said, before week 1 in Detroit. So was not surprised at 2 quarterbacks, not surprised at 3 running backs. Jason Huntley didn't do enough to make this team. Got all the wide receivers right. Thought they were going to keep 5. They kept 5. That was about if they were going to be able to trade Jalen Reagor. They did not trade Jalen Reagor. So he's here, and he'll be that fifth receiver. Plus, he'll be a big impact on the return game. Unless they can get something done, you can still trade. Uh, uh, before that happens and before that's situated, the 53 man in week 1. So tight end went the way I expected. Offensive line got 9 out of 10, so that hurt as well. Missed Josh Sills. Everybody missed Josh Sills. Not
Really?
one beat reporter got Josh Sills. I had Jack Anderson. So that was a Jeff Stoutland move. So thanks, Jeff. You screwed me there. Josh Sills makes the 53-man roster. And that was interesting because 3 undrafted guys made the 53. Josh Sills, Josh Jobe, and Reed Blankenship. So that was a little bit of a surprise.
I mean, that speaks to Jeff Stoutland's coaching ability.
Well, Jeff's got a lot of power in the organization, and if he wants to keep a guy, he can keep a guy. So I think, Josh Sills earned his respect when Jordan Mailata and Andre Dillard were both down at the exact same time with concussions, and Josh Sills was forced to play left tackle, and he's not obviously a natural left tackle. And I think he earned a lot of respect for doing that and really holding up okay. And if Jeff likes you, man, he's gonna pound the table for you, and he might be the most powerful. He might be the most powerful assistant coach on this team. And what he says, especially with his success, it holds a lot of weight.
Yeah. So I'm curious. We discussed quarterback, wide receivers, tight ends for a bit, offensive line. It's funny because you mentioned, and I want to make sure this was you. You did mention that they were going to keep 10 offensive linemen, right?
Yes.
But Josh Sills wasn't the one that you thought he would.
No, I had Jack Anderson instead of Josh Sills. So I thought Jack Anderson's versatility would win out, and he played well. And they'll probably try to get him back on the practice squad, and we'll see if they can get him through waivers. I do think other teams are going to look at Eagles' backup offensive lineman more than most because of Jeff's reputation. So ultimately, he might be back just on the practice squad, and that's what I said, the strategy in those types of things.
You mentioned Jalen Reagor not too long ago. They weren't able to facilitate a trade. I'm curious to know what's your overall projection for Jalen Reagor's future. Do you anticipate him being here week 1? Do you think they're going to be able to find a place for him? And also, they lost out on guys like Deion Kane and Devin Allen. Now, I know you're not the highest on Devin Allen, but Deion Kane specifically, Deion Kane clearly outplayed Jalen Reagor throughout the entire, preseason. And, I just want to get your overall assessment of that situation and also your projection on Jalen Reagor's future in Philadelphia.
I still think, the best case scenario for both sides would be a change of scenery. But look, Jalen's got more talent than Deion Kane, and it's not particularly close. So the Eagles were they were not going to release him because it was too much of a detriment from a salary cap standpoint. Would have been over $7 million. They Howie wanted something of value in return, maybe asking for a little bit too much, especially at this time, because, guys are on the waiver wire. So you look in Tampa Bay, somebody like Tyler Johnson, he goes on waivers. Well, if you can go get Tyler Johnson on waivers, why are you going to worry about trading something for Jalen Reagor? So, and there's more than just that. But I think from the Eagles standpoint, I've said this pretty consistently. If you're a fifth or a sixth wide receiver, if they kept 6, you got to help on special teams. And Deion doesn't play special teams, and Jalen's a kick returner and a punt returner. So that's a big part of it as well. But Yeah, I mean, he probably wouldn't be here unless he was a first-round pick, and he was a first-round pick, and it's not going to work here. The only way he's going to get an opportunity is if there's massive, massive injuries. And I'm not only talking about A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Quez Watkins as well, and Zach Pascal as well. So he's a fifth wide receiver, and it's probably not the best situation for both sides, but if you can't get something, he's going to be there. And they need a punt returner. I mean, they don't have anybody else. Greg Ward's gone. Britton Covey didn't deserve to make this team. Britton Covey, sorry, keep calling him Covey. Britton Covey. So I mean, it's an issue for the Eagles, and he's their best punt returner.
Let's go down the list some more of players that did make the roster. So let's transition to the defense side of the ball. Defensive line. Who did you have making it, and how did it turn out exactly?
Well, I had 5 defensive ends making it, and that would be Brandon Graham, Josh Sweat. 4 defensive ends: Brandon Graham, Josh Sweat, Derek Barnett, and Teron Jackson. That's how it shook out. I had 5 defensive tackles making it: Fletcher Cox, Davon Hargrave, Jordan Davis, Milton Williams, and Marlon Tui-Pelotu, and that's how it shook out. So the defensive line was pretty easy to figure who was going to make this team. And, the one guy who probably should be an NFL player, should be on a roster, is Marvin Wilson. Really talented guy, but it was a numbers game for him. And the Eagles will hope to get him on the practice squad, and we'll see if that works out tomorrow.
Now, linebackers, one name that did surprise me a little bit, and I was pulling for this kid, was Gardner-Johnson. He did make the roster. Same thing with the defensive line. Can you speak on who you projected to make the linebacker room, and who actually ended up making it?
Boy, it bothers me the way the Eagles do this. First of all, I call them overhang players.
Okay.
And that's Hassan Reddick, Patrick Johnson, Gardner-Johnson. They all made the team. That's who I projected. All-ball linebacker. Also projected TJ Edwards, Kaiser White, Nakobe Dean, Davion Taylor, Sean Bradley. So that was another position that was pretty locked in. No surprises. The surprises came in the secondary, starting with the trade, and Anthony Harris not being there, and also Reed Blankenship making the team as an undrafted free agent. Didn't see that coming.
Well, you said they always keep one.
But they kept 3. They kept 3. They
Okay.
kept Josh Jobe. They kept, and I had him keeping Josh. They kept Reed Blankenship, and they kept Josh Sills. So that's what kind of sunk me. Josh Jobe, Josh Jobe, Josh Sills, plus the Anthony Harris trade.
Yeah. Anthony Harris.
Not the Anthony Harris trade, the trade
cut
that got Anthony Harris cut. Basically.
That one kind of surprised me. The safety room is right now Reed Blankenship, Marcus Epps, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, and we're going to get into that as well. And Kavon Wallace, someone who I thought shouldn't be on his roster at this point, if I'm being completely honest. But
yeah, I'm with you. He shouldn't have made this team.
I want to get your thoughts on that, but also cutting Anthony Harris. I mean, make it make sense for the people.
It makes perfect sense. I mentioned this really going back to the spring, and I said it not only about Anthony Harris, but also Jaquiski Tartt. Both of them, it was, there was a chance that they were going to start for this team.
Right.
And there was a chance that they were going to be cut, because if they're not starters, it was going to be difficult to keep them because they don't help on special teams. So, and that's exactly how it shook out. Tartt didn't win the starting job. They cut him. Anthony Harris was going to be the starter, was going to be the starting safety. And I was talking to somebody from the team today. And the Eagles would have been comfortable with that. But they were able to get an upgrade in their mind. They were able to get younger, faster, more athletic. And they pencil in Chauncey to be a starter. And once you do that, that's why Anthony Harris was released.
So Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, former Saints DB, a tweener between safety and nickel. Can you give us the details on this trade, how this trade came about, the chess pieces that were moved, and just what your overall expectations are for his impact? I know you mentioned speed and they got younger, but can you expand on that and elaborate just on the details surrounding this entire move? Because no one saw this coming. I mean, we knew they needed a safety, right?
Well, we knew they needed a safety. The problem is they didn't trade for a safety. They traded for a nickel corner who they're going to turn into a safety. So yeah, it was a little bit unconventional. I'm a little bit surprised people are so excited about this trade, to be honest. Couple things.
Here goes Cynical John. Here we go.
Well, I mean, he's played 80 snaps in his entire career at safety. Number one. Number two, they traded a 5th-round pick in 2023 and a 6th-round pick in 2024. I mean, this isn't Marcus Williams, who they tried to sign in free agency for $13 million a year and got outbid.
Right.
This is a young player that they think can project the safety, but he's never played safety. He's hasn't been here, so he's got to learn the whole system, and he's got less than 2 weeks to the opener in Detroit. They got younger, they got more athletic, and they got more speed. That's fair to say. So they got better from a trait standpoint. But I can tell you, Anthony Harris knows how to play safety. He knows how to play safety in this defense. He knows how to line up. He knows all those little things. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson doesn't have that kind of savvy playing the position. Now, maybe it works out, but I got the feeling like people were spiking the football about this, and I'm like, you might want to wait and see how this looks.
You bring up an interesting point. They essentially traded experience, or not traded experience, but they essentially got rid of experience for youth and fire, and what they anticipate this guy to be, right? Projection. And I'm curious to know, what do you think goes into a decision like that? How does a team move on from a guy who clearly knows the system, who knows how to play the position fairly well? I guess a guy like that you consider to be old reliable, right? He doesn't really make too many mistakes.
He's an average player. Yeah. I mean, he was earlier in his career, he was a great player, but he's not that anymore. And he is over 30. So you do tend to continue to descend at that point. You're not going to go back to what you were. So I get it from that standpoint. And the Eagles have been trying to get an upgraded safety throughout the offseason. I mentioned Marcus Williams. They kicked the tires on Honey Badger. They've been looking stealth, as I think Albert Breaux said, stealthy, looking for a safety, but wasn't stealthy. We've been writing about it for months. They've been looking for a stinking safety. They signed Jaquiski Tartt. They knew they needed an upgraded safety. They weren't able to do it. You can't get everything. They got Jordan Davis for the interior line. They got Hassan Reddick as an edge rusher. They got Kaiser White as a coverage linebacker. They got James Bradbury at corner. They were able to do all these things. You can't do everything. So now you're at the end of the process and you got to start thinking outside the box. So I'll give them credit. We're all looking at safeties. We're all saying, Well, maybe they can get Chuck Clark. Maybe they can get this guy. Maybe they can get that guy. We weren't looking at nickel corners to play safety. So I give them credit for thinking outside the box. And if it works, great. But he played 9 reps at safety last year. 9. He played 477 in the slot. You know, I don't know if he can play safety. I know Anthony Harris can play safety.
So that begs the question. Is there a chance, and me personally, I'll be against this, but is there a chance they even consider moving Avonte Maddox to safety? He has experience doing that, and, you know, they've thought about it before.
No, he did that under Jim Schwartz. Unless Jonathan Gannon is flat out lying to me. He said he's not moving Avonte Maddox. Couple things there. Avonte was forced into playing safety as a rookie because of injuries. And it was sort of like what I just said about Josh Sills. You know, he deserves a lot of credit for doing something he's never done before and really working at it. But there's this sort of revisionist history that he played well at safety as a rookie. He didn't play well. He fought and he scratched, and it was better than it probably should have been. And he deserves a lot of credit for that. But I see this narrative of he played well at safety. He didn't play well at safety. And he plays really, really well in slot corner. Now, Jonathan Gannon also, you know, says in his scheme, slot and safety kind of mirror each other at times. But make no mistake, the plan here is for Chauncey to play safety. That's what he's coming here for. That's what he's going to do. Now, if he fails, then you have to figure something out. So it might be Josiah Scott when he gets healthy. It might be Avonte Maddox at that point. But Jonathan Gannon to this point has been steadfast. He is not moving Avonte Maddox.
This guy Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. He plays the game with a lot of juice. I looked up some tape on him. Some highlights and everything. And
yeah, he's yelling at Tom Brady.
He plays the game with a lot of juice. He's out here yelling at Tom Brady. I think that's the game he picked him off like twice or something. And that's the kind of thing that's the kind of badge of honor you would definitely wear on Sunday and any given day, right? But he plays the game with a lot of swagger, a lot of juice. He brings a ferocity to this team that maybe was missing a little bit. I know you have guys like Darius Slay who plays with a swagger, but missing BG last year, they missed that high energy guy, that guy that's going to continuously talk and keep you engaged. Gardner's young, but he strikes me as someone who's always engaged in the game, a guy who, like I said, plays the game with a lot of swagger, a lot of juice. And I'm just really curious, how does Howie Roseman keep doing this? He finds ways, these unique ways to wheel and deal. He flips JJ Arcega-Whiteside for a couple picks. Then he flips those picks. He flips JJ Arcega-Whiteside for a player. Then he flips that player for picks, and then he flips those picks for this kid, CJ Gardner-Johnson. Please try to take me behind the mask, right? What's the method behind Howie's madness? How does he keep doing this? Well,
he's a good GM. I mean, a lot of Eagles fans don't like that, but he is. He's good at his job. From that standpoint, being able to flip things, as you mentioned, for somebody like JJ Arcega-Whiteside and turning it into something of potential value, whether it was Ugo Amadi, which didn't work out, and he flips that and he gets some of the picks to be able to get Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, it's what he does. He usually creates, he usually wins value trades from a value standpoint. But ultimately, it's great to win trades. Sixer fans know Sam Hinkie was obsessed with winning trades from a value standpoint. Well, that's great, but It all comes down to the player. Is the player going to play well? If the player plays well, it's a good trade. You know, you can look back at it and be esoteric and say, well, that's great value. Yeah, it is, but that doesn't matter on the field. That doesn't matter on the field. The player's got to come through. And Jody and I talked about it with Jaquiski Tartt when we had these people, you know, saying he's the best safety on the Eagles and blah, blah, blah. And we said, you know, be very, very careful because nobody knows Jaquiski Tartt better than the San Francisco 49ers. And they didn't want him. Nobody knows Chauncey Gardner-Johnson better than the New Orleans Saints. And it's not to the point that they didn't want him, but because of his contract demands, they gave him up for a 5th-round pick and a 6th-round pick. I mean, just temper those expectations.
You bring up a good point, but you know, there's something different about Howie this year. I mean, I don't know. This has been one of his most active off seasons that we've seen in a long time, but it's not just about the activity for me. It's the decision making. It's the patience he's been exercising. It's the pieces he's decided to bring in, and the fact that they fit. Do you sense a different air about Howie Roseman? And I also want to take it a step further with you. I mean, since parting ways with Doug Peterson, has his decision making shifted since then? Does he have a chip on his shoulder because he wants to prove something?
No, I don't think Howie would have kept Doug Peterson. Decision-making shifts with the coaching staff because you want to get players for a particular coaching staff. So from that standpoint, you know, he wants to get players that fit into what Nick Sirianni and Jonathan Gannon want. And that might be different than Doug Peterson and Jim Schwartz. So from that standpoint, it changes. Does he have a chip on his shoulder? Probably. The chip comes from people who think he's a bad GM. And there's plenty of people in Philadelphia. I get yelled at. You can imagine the vitriol he gets. I get yelled at for saying he's a good GM. So, you know, if you watched All or Nothing when the Eagles were on, Howie's got the darkest tint on his car because he can't drive around without people cursing at him. And he knows the passion of Eagles fans. But, you know, sometimes it's unrealistic. And you see it today because, you know, today he's being lauded for getting a player that, you know, not a lot of these fans that are lauding him know that much about, to be honest. But for whatever reason, they've latched onto it and think they've gotten the next Malcolm Jenkins, which they have not. Trust me on that one. Yeah, I don't know. I'm you know, I know people are going to get mad at me for this, but temper those expectations. You might see Kayvon Wallace week 1 in Detroit.
Oh God. Oh man, if he plays the way I mean, look, it's Tyreek Hill, but if he allows that to happen, if he allows DJ Chark to burn him, if he allows Amon St. Rod to embarrass him, if he's out there, of course, I might lose my damn mind, John. Honestly, like Kayvon Wallace has, and look, I'm very big on, you know, respecting players because they're people at the end of the day. But Kayvon Wallace ultimately has been a disappointment, and you can't help.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care about losing a foot race to Tyreek Hill, but yeah, I mean, he's been a disappointment. I don't think he deserved to make this team. Maybe it's Reed Blankenship. Maybe you're starting an undrafted free agent, or maybe Chauncey gets up to speed in a week of practice because that's what he's going to get. But in a lot of ways, that's putting them behind the 8 ball because you have these big expectations, right?
Right.
You see how everybody is excited today, Tone. Well, you're throwing them out there in a week. with these expectations? And what if he does get beat a couple times by a team that people think is really bad? Listen to my partner, Jody Mack. They're not that bad. They're getting better, and they're getting better. And Frank Ragnow's back, and Penei Sewell's now in the second year. Taylor Decker's back. And, luckily Jameson Williams isn't going to be there, but they're not a great team, but they're going to be better than the team that the Eagles saw last year. Definitely. And they're going to be hyped up. And Howie even said that they're going to be hyped up week one. You're putting them in that environment with a week of practice. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I tell people all the time, this Detroit Lions team, there's like I said, there's something going on over there in Detroit that Dan Campbell's brewing, and you can't ignore it at this point. But this Eagles roster, you have to ask, with all the moves they made, Kaiser White, Hassan Reddick, Jordan Davis, Nakobe Dean, James Bradbury, bringing in AJ Brown, CJ Gardner-Johnson. You think about all the moves he's made, and then you think about his draft history these past few years. Have the Eagles finally constructed the closest thing to a complete roster on paper, at the very least? And if not, what are the glaring weaknesses to you?
They have a good roster. I think it's top 10 on paper. They have a lot of good players. Depth is shaky at certain positions: running back, tight end, safety. So there's some holes, but everybody's got holes, even the best teams. So I think this is a better roster at the beginning of the season than Super Bowl season on paper. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it's a better roster at the end of the season.
Things change.
Yeah. At this time that year, we were talking about Patrick Robinson. Like, how is this guy still on the team? How is this guy still on? And he said such a terrible training camp. And then they move him from outside corner to slot, and he turns into the best slot corner in the NFL that season. The best, number one. Nobody saw that coming. And if they did, they're lying to you, especially seeing him at practice every day. So, things fell into place. We'll see if things fall into place. But there's certain issues. And obviously, the quarterback, we still have to see it. I do not like the running game, not the running game, the running back situation right now.
Yeah, you expect them to have 4 running backs, right? Because the way you see it, 17-game season, you got to have some depth there.
No, well, I expected him to cut down to 3, but I expect him to bring a 4th one, because Jason Huntley was not, worthy of making this roster, nor was Kennedy Brooks. I expect them to get a 4th running back at some point, and we'll see how that shakes out. Tight end, I mean, it is a cliff from Dallas Goedert down to Jack Stoll. That is a major drop off. They have really good depth on the offensive line, really good depth on the defensive line. Corner's another position. Great starters, great starters. Depth, I mean, they got issues. If any of those guys go down, probably they could cobble things together at nickel because they have so many guys. But outside, if Bradbury or Slay go down, Zach McPherson, not ready. Josh Jobe, not ready, not healthy. So they have issues from a depth standpoint there as well. But nobody, I mean, their starters are really good. Really good.
So What potential moves do you anticipate to be on the horizon? I mean, typically these teams they cut guys and they make these sideline deals, these these wink deals, saying, "Hey, listen, don't move out the city yet. We're going to try to bring you back if if you clear waivers." Are there any potential names that you see this team targeting, maybe in the trade market for a running back? I know there are plenty of guys that are on the block. There are guys that have been cut. Are there any players that were on this team that you anticipate the clear waivers that the Eagles may want to try to bring back? Just what potential moves do you think are on the horizon for this team?
Oh, they're going to bring a lot of people back on the practice squad. The vast majority of the 16 on the practice squad are going to be guys who just got cut. Most of them are going to get through waivers. Marvin Wilson, that's the guy I would keep an eye on, because if anybody's been paying attention, as I said, that guy's an NFL player. They just didn't have room for him. So I could see somebody picking him up. But as far as, the vast majority of the Eagles practice squad is going to be made up of the people they just cut. That's the way it works in every NFL city. As far as actual 53, if they can find a running back, they'll probably try to get a running back. But that's, they don't want to trade for one. Alexander Madison was the big name at the cut down because he's stuck behind Dalvin Cook in Minnesota. He's going to be a free agent. He's going to leave. He's on the last year of his deal. They also have tremendous depth, so they can afford to lose him. But they were asking for a third-round pick, at worst a conditional 4. The Eagles aren't going to pay that for a running back. Right. They just don't value that position. I think he'd be a perfect fit because he's a powerful downhill runner, and that's exactly what they need. They're going to have to find that somewhere else, and it might be the practice squad. You might wait and wait and wait, and then bring them up when you need them. And that's what I was talking about, that strategy. It's different today. So people talk about the 53, but Doug was really the first to talk about this. Now it's really 69. And with the Eagles, 70, because they have Matt Leo and his 100th year in the International Pathway Program. But yeah, I mean, they're going to have a lot of people back that they just cut. Right. And they'll continue to try to develop those players, but practice squad players are practice squad players. So, they could use real tangible help at running back, at tight end, backup corner, backup safety, but you can't have everything.
Yeah, that's true. Final question, but it's a two-parter. How does the Eagles roster currently, as it stands, the initial 53-man roster, how does this team, from a talent perspective, on paper, of course, because that's all we have to go off of right now, how does this roster, stack up against their NFC East rivals, and also all these moves that have been made, especially the latest to bring in Gardner-Johnson? How do these moves reflect how the organization sees Jalen Hurts? Because to me, based on all these moves, they appear to be all in to me.
Yeah, they think they're a contender. Are they? I don't know if it says anything about Jalen Hurts other than they want Jalen Hurts to prove that they're a contender. But it's a real contender. But it's a wait and see approach for them, just like it is for everybody else. They think he's improved. They think he's got a chance to be a really good quarterback. But I always say, don't listen to what a team says. Watch what they do. And I said that about safety with Marcus Williams. I say it at quarterback. I'm not the one who called asking about Deshaun Watson. I'm not the one who called asking about Russell Wilson. They did. So fans can get angry about that. But they were open to getting a clearly better quarterback. And When you don't have doubts, you're not open to that. It's kind of simple.
So the NFC East, how does this roster stack up?
It's the best roster in the NFC East, especially now that Dallas lost Tyron Smith. They're not the same team without him. He's been banged up. That's an all-decade player. That's a Hall of Fame player. Now, he's been banged up the last 2 years. He's missed about 20 games. And when he's not on the field versus when he is on the field, the numbers are just astronomical of the Cowboys' offense efficiency going down. And he's gone. And he's probably gone for the year. And they're going to start their rookie first-round pick, who they probably overdrafted. That injury alone shifts. I have the Cowboys as a slight favorite, very, very slight favorite over the Eagles. That is now tilted the Eagles' way because of that injury.
Wow, listen, you guys heard it here first. Look, if you ask me, it'll be a sin if this Philadelphia Eagles team doesn't win with the way this roster has been constructed. Howie Roseman's made a lot of moves to make this team competitive, to make them a contender, but it's always going to hinge on whether or not the quarterback position is shored up. And yes, Jalen Hurts is the guy for now, but it's going to be imperative for him to take advantage of every opportunity that not only his offense can create for him, but also this defense can create. And I think this defense has a lot of talent on it where you can force turnovers, you can force a lot of 3-and-outs, but it's going to come down to Jonathan Gannon executing and putting these guys in the best possible position to succeed. John, always grateful to you for always providing your objective, very straightforward, no chaser, unbiased opinion, my man. Always grateful to you. You never pull your punches, and Philadelphia doesn't realize the treasure they have in you, my man.
Yeah, they certainly don't.
Oh, man. But you guys were locked in on Football 24/7. Make sure you guys continue to smash that like button. JAKIB Sports has been on fire today, and it's all because of you guys. I've been behind the scenes keeping track of everything. Me and Xander are locked in, and you guys have been spectacular. Do not take it for granted, and we do not take it for granted as well. We're going to continue to give you guys that hot fire. We're going to continue to give you guys dope content like Football 24/7, like Good Morning NFC East with Jeff Kerr, Birds 365 with John McMullen and Joey McDonald, the Football Playbook with Rick Ciratella. Also, prayers to Rick Ciratella and his family. They're going through a turbulent time right now, and I hope all is well on the home front. Also, shout out to the Sports Take guys, Bear Brooks, Derek Gunn, Rob Ellis, the National Football Show with Dan Cilio. Also, most importantly and most notably, you guys, the new JAKIB Sports postgame show, the hottest postgame show that's going to be coming to the Atlantic City area, but it's going to be covering your Philadelphia Eagles. Look, you guys, you don't want to miss this. Derek Gunn, Mike Missinelli, Seth Joyner, the lovely Devin Caney. This lineup is stacked. Just think about the type of insight you're going to get from these guys. Just think about the type of analysis and passion you're going to get from guys like Seth Joyner and Mike Missinelli. And then Devin Caney is going to have a hard job trying to, manage these guys and keep these guys in check. But at the end of the day, it's going to be an electric affair. If you guys want to watch this post-game show in person,
Devin will just chug a beer. Trust me.
Hey, listen, Devin's always at those Philly games. You always catch a beer in hand, right? Oh, man. But shout out to those guys, man, for being awesome at their craft and for always being class X. If you guys want to watch this post-game show in person, you guys are able to go check it out at Ocean Casino Resort at their new sports book, The Gallery. That's located in Atlantic City. You do not want to miss this, man. You guys can place all your sports bets, get good food, get good drinks, and you'll be able to catch the livest, the most spectacular post-game show in the city of Philadelphia. This will be the biggest post-game show to ever grace Philadelphia, you guys. So make sure you guys are locked in. Like I said, Seth Joyner, Mike Missinelli, Derek Gunn, and Devin Caney. You guys can also live stream this on the JAKIB Sports YouTube channel, and it will also be available on 6abc.com. But I'll leave it at that, you guys. You guys were locked in on Football 24/7 with John McMullen, and I am your humble host, Tone DeShields II. One love, stay humble, stay healthy, and most importantly, stay hungry, you guys. Take care.
Go for the pulse and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.